Hi, my name's Keith Cooper, Northlight Images, and in this video I'm going to answer a few questions people asked me about what I was going to do about getting a new camera. Now, as some might have seen, just the other day I got this new Fuji GFX100S. Now, I've had work and various other things to do, so I didn't immediately rush out and try it. Now, fortunately, Fuji lent me one of these a couple of times beforehand, and I've done some reviews and some tests, so I have some experience of using the camera. But I'm curious to know what people's first things they do when they're setting up a camera is. Now, for me, process is one I've carried out when I had my 1DS Mark III, my original 1DS, and other times when I've had cameras to test and look at. I actually read the manual. Now, I don't necessarily read it page by page, but I certainly go through and look at all the major features. Now, interesting with this one, I'm using it initially with some adapted lenses. Now, I know these adapted lenses work. So a quick overview of some of the things I did and when I took it out, and you know, that classic, what are you going to do for your first photos, where are you going to take it, including the thing I did which falls into that category of you only do this once and hopefully you never do it on a paying job. I've done it, so hopefully I will remember in future. So how did I set the camera up? Well, first of all, if I was interested in sort of sports or nature photography, well, I probably wouldn't necessarily have chosen this particular camera. I would go out and take some photos of things I'm familiar with lenses I know, or lenses of a type I know, and look at different aspects. Now, because I use tilt-shift lenses a lot, I really don't care much about autofocus performance. And for me, based on my previous use, quite a bit of setting this up was to decide which buttons to program to do which. So I've got the button on the front here set to switch between 35mm mode, i.e. cropped mode if I'm using a lens like this and don't want the extra field of view, limited to just 60 megapixels in that case. But that one's just a quick swap for that. This button on the side here next to the shutter release, now, it's a exposure compensation. Well, if I didn't shoot manual for almost everything I do, exposure compensation would probably be a useful setting to have here, but I just don't use it. Now, there was a firmware update. When I did the installation and setup of this, I went through and I thought, oh, there's a phone thing for it. So I went through to the phone, and the phone app told me that there was a firmware update. So I happily let the firmware work. Now, what I didn't realise was the firmware had been released that day. And normally I tell people, do not update camera firmware to fix things unless you've got a problem until it's been out a week or two to iron out bumps. No, guess who uploaded their firmware on the day it came out? That means I'm told, and I don't know, that apparently functionality of this button at the side here for its marked purpose has been broken. Now, makes no difference to me because I don't use it and I'd already assigned the button to somewhere else. But a reminder that when you get a new camera, whereas with printers, I will always update the firmware when it comes out. With cameras, I would normally wait. I don't know why I waited, just got carried away with that new toy. Let's get everything set up. The GPS stuff worked fine with this. Using the phone, but given I often don't have a phone with me or things like that, and I'm not particularly interested in GPS, and when I do need GPS, I need good, accurate GPS for positioning for photos. That's on the to-do list. It works, but I'm not particularly bothered about it. This button here, so I have to put it on to somewhere. This button here activates the level. So what I've got for here, this is the checking that just to see the button next to the shutter release has been assigned to operate the level. This one I've conveniently forgotten already. This one switches between modes of display on here. If I press this button here, it allows me to switch between this button controlling ISO updating and aperture update. The button at the back here, now what does that do? Oh yes, this one puts a histogram on. This one's the level, and this one switches the... You need practice with these sort of things. I've taken it out a couple of times and already I have to remember this. Now, it will sink in, and that's the whole point. I make these settings based on testing I've done before, and I will obviously, some of them I will find useful, some of them I will find annoying. I've got the rear wheel at the back here. This changes the shutter speed, and if I press that one, it zooms in to give me a magnified view in the viewfinder. Very useful because I'm using manual focusing here. I've got focus peaking enabled, which makes it a lot easier. Yeah, at some point I will get some other lenses to try on this thing, but this is just that initial setup, because I know some people are curious about how you go. I have no magic way of going about it. Do whatever works for you. I'm interested to hear what people think about their own settings, particularly if you've got one of these, what works for you or not. But anyway, so off I went out. I happened to be going out to see some people yesterday. I had to walk through town, so I'll take a few pictures. Now, because I've got this printer here and it prints colour prints very well, I've done that's Leicester Museum. Sent to the printer a print resolution of around about 800 pixels per inch, way over what's needed, but it is a lovely sharp picture. Similarly, another picture here. These were printed on Epson premium glossy photo paper. It's a paper that's been around for years. In fact, this particular pack here is probably getting 15-20 years old. The paper still goes, it still works. I've made profiles for it with this, but it makes nice prints. I just wanted to see what they look like, some prints out of it. What did I get wrong? It's possible on all cameras I've set this to decide on your mode of how you're setting things up. I'd actually set this to JPEG only, so these pictures are from JPEGs. I went out and took about 20. I was going out to meet some people anyway, so it was a walk through town just to practice it. And I took a whole series of photos just on JPEG. Now, I say just on JPEG. The JPEGs from this are huge. They are eminently usable as long as you've exposed them okay, because obviously you've got a limited amount of that you can change. So there you go. Not only did I only take this one lens, but I also forgot to set the camera to record RAW and JPEG. Yeah, that's the sort of thing you only do once. I've done it once with my 5DS. I've done it once with my 1DS Mark III. I did it once with film camera, going out and taking a whole load of shots with no film in the camera, and got about 15-20 shots before I realised that something wasn't right about the way the film was winding forward. That one caught me out. But anyway, so I'm sure I will experiment more with the settings here of that. But if I set the basic settings here, press this one here, I can see a level on the back. Press this one here, I've got a histogram on the back, or the viewfinder here. This one here changes the mode of this. I might change this one here since I'm not that bothered about the dials mode, but it is good that you can press it and get a histogram up on the top here as well. This button I may well change something. This one I'm okay. AF on, well, nothing happens because they're manual focus lenses. I probably leave that as AF on. But there you have it. I'm quite pleased with the pictures from it. Just one more thing, however. This lens, I've used my architectural work a lot. It's a 24mm tilt shift lens. 24mm gives a particular field of view on a 35mm frame. Obviously, I get a wider field of view, and this is nearer equivalent to the TSE-17. In looking closely at the images from this, I have found that the lens is slightly off-centered. So no matter what you do with focusing, the image quality at this edge here, and this would be out of the normal 35mm frame, the image quality along this edge here is not as good as it could be. The rest of it, pin sharp, works a treat. What does that suggest? A bit of decentering of the lens. It means I probably need to get this lens serviced. Ouch, I wasn't hoping on doing that. Now, the TSE-17 is a little bit loose, but then I've used it a lot, and it's a 2007 lens. Yeah, it needs tightening up and adjusting. The elements seem okay, but I've discovered that this lens has a slight issue with it if I use it on this sensor. Now, it's not that much of an issue because, yeah, the pictures are okay, they focus okay. It is just, I notice a little bit of softness just on the edge. So what workaround can I do? I may be tempted to use this in 35mm mode where I'm using this as a 24mm lens on a 35mm. Yes, it's only 60 megapixels compared to the 50 of the 5DS, but I've already found that the files from this, when I remember to set it to record raw files, that is, the file quality is that much better and I can edit much more freely. It's only once I got used to editing the files of this and gone back to editing some files from the 5DS, I've realized the improvement in range of that. Now, before people think I'm dissing Canon here, I'm not. Similarly, I like the files of the R5, but the R5, as compared to the 5DS, just wasn't a big enough improvement for what I want. I will undoubtedly get some lenses that work with autofocus and things like that. I'll come back to that. But please do, if you've got any car, I'd love to hear what people do when they get a new camera. You know, how do you go out? What do you take a photograph? I just took it out and just took some pictures of some buildings as I was walking through to meet some people. And as I say, I learnt that useful lesson of the RAW and RAW plus JPEG settings as well, and have discovered a bit more about the quality of this lens. Just offer, probably because I knocked it once or something like that and it's a bit decentered, but unfortunately that will cost rather a lot to be serviced, which is an annoyance if nothing else. Anyway, I hope this is of interest. I'm going to be doing some more pictures once I've got some more serious images from this, and I'm going to be looking at making prints as well. And I'm looking also, and this is something I'm having a chat with some people about taking images from this and having them professionally printed. Now, normally I do my own large printing. I don't send prints out. So I'm quite interested to have a look at professional printing and to see what they can manage, and to see how it goes. This will be sometime over the next few months, so don't hold your breath for it, but that's one of the things I'm going to be looking at. So thanks for watching, and please do subscribe to the channel. Thank you.